Hey, boys.
Good, mate. How are you?
Good. Very good. Nice. Enjoying this nice warm weather.
Yeah, a bit of rain around.
Yeah, last bit of summer, I guess.
Yeah.
One last push, and we should be getting into the cold weather.
How's the weather over there, Mick?
Very good over here. We're in the rain season, but we've actually had a little bit of a lull for the last week, which has been nice. It's just been very sunny, humidity building, sucking all that moisture out of the cane fields and the ground. So, nice and warm over here at the moment, boys.
Nice, nice. Hey, how long have we been doing this podcast for? When did we start? Is it about a year?
Coming up on a year.
Really?
I feel like it was probably conceived about a year ago, the idea of doing the podcast.
Yep.
I think the first episode was May.
Okay. So we just
First episode that we released, I think we did a little bit of pre-planning before that, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a couple of false starts, didn't we? We sort of
Yeah.
intricacies of recording and how we wanted to put it across.
Yeah.
Did a couple of little test runs.
So I think that was early May.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon this time last year we were sitting down talking about it, sort of working out the nuts and bolts of how it was going to come together.
Because the reason I ask is over this nearly 12 months, I've incorporated a lot of things that we've discussed and studied on this podcast. So I was just curious as to what you guys have incorporated into your lives, into your health, well-being and fitness lives based on what we've talked about. Do you think, have you introduced anything, things in particular?
I reckon that alcohol episode for me was massive. I didn't realise how bad it was for you. I think we talked about it during the episode and how the media portrays it, how society portrays alcohol. But 2 or 3 a day is fine. Just have it in moderation. That's okay. You should be good. But all of that deep dive that I did into it suggested that any alcohol is no good. So yeah, I've really cut back on that and had a pretty big session mid-November, and since then have barely had a drink.
Yeah, right.
I did have, and once again, social constructs. I did have one at a wake the other day, but yeah. Apart from that, I've really knocked it back, and I think what I worked out is I really quite enjoyed that ritual of having a beer in the afternoon, especially during summer in Perth. It's hot. You might be working around the house. It's good to grab a beer. And I think I mentioned in our alcohol episode, what's the point in non-alcoholic beer? I specifically remember going, what's the point in that? But I've definitely adopted having a non-alcoholic beer in the afternoon, which it's that sort of ritualistic aspect of it, and a bit of a thirst quencher. So I've started having non-alcoholic beer in the arvo, which it's good and bad. There's been some hit and miss ones, but I've definitely cut back alcohol almost to zero. There'll be probably a few occasions where I'll try it, but that's probably been the biggest one for me.
Yeah, right.
And I guess until you get rid of it, a cousin of mine, or a couple of cousins, both went cold turkey, fully off the alcohol, haven't had a drop for 3 years. But I've found that everything is better without it. I sleep better. I wake up better, and I was almost, even a couple of beers or a red wine at night, I would find I'd wake up with a bit of a headache and think, what's that about? What? Oh, maybe I'm not getting enough oxygen as I sleep, or is it too hot, or is the room not cool enough? Whatever it might be, and I think now N=1 experiment on myself, cutting that alcohol out has helped completely with a lot of stuff.
Good on you for doing that, mate. And that's a lot about how we learn about how to adapt our lifestyle, isn't it? Like just little experiments, little biohacks.
Yeah.
So you eliminate something and you sort of gauge the results.
Yep. And I don't really want to have one an alcoholic drink after dark anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bit of a morning drinker.
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as you
Couple of
get out
lunch
of
beers.
Yeah, bit of a whiskey on ice. As soon as you get out of
As
bed.
long-
9 a.m. Little pick me up.
As long as it's during the day, I'm all good. Nah, but I think that nighttime, the disruption of circadian rhythms, and you're told, oh, have a couple of drinks and it'll knock you out and you'll go to sleep. But waking up, sometimes I'd wake up sweating 2 or 3 hours after getting to bed and then not being able to get to bed. And I've put that down solely to alcohol.
Yeah.
CJ, what's you got a tip on a good non-alcoholic beer? Have you tried a few different brands or?
Oh, name them. I've tried them.
Yeah, okay.
the last
What's your one
3
you're
or
on at
4
the
months.
moment? If you're going to choose one,
There's a Heaps Normal. It's called Heaps Normal Lager.
right?
Yeah. If you like a bit of fruit, the XPAs. There's a Heaps Normal do another one of those. I think it's an XPA hazy or something.
I wonder if they do a non-alcoholic stout or a porter. Have you ever come across?
I
like
haven't
heavy?
seen those.
Yeah,
No.
I'm sure they could.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at the local farmers market they sell non-alcoholic wine. There's actually now, like an aisle in the supermarkets, pretty much. Not an aisle, sorry, a section of an aisle dedicated to non-alcoholic drinks.
You sort of wonder whether society is sort of moving towards an evolution where toxic substances like alcohol that can have such a detrimental effect on society, like violence, domestic violence, alcoholism, disease, that sort of stuff, and you sort of sense that there's around the world there's becoming these removals of illegalization of sort of more well-being sort of drugs in inverted commas. So like your cannabis oils or cannabis, like your psychedelic mushrooms and stuff like that. I know a lot of governments around the world are looking at what's the word? Delegalizing.
Decriminalising.
Decriminalising.
Delegalising.
Those sort of substances. So I wonder whether we're just evolving to a point where we're realizing that this alcohol is a detrimental thing to human bodies and human society, and other things can actually have a better effect.
That we once thought were bad maybe aren't so bad, and they have some decent properties. Because I know they're doing a lot of work with psychedelics on PTSD and even
Depression.
Even
with
MDMA.
I think I listened to a TED talk the other day, and it was like psychedelics for people with terminal illness who are going to die.
Yeah, right.
And they were giving them like quite a large dose, and they were sort of coming out with no fear of death.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty fascinating.
and there's some studies also that psilocybin, which is found in some mushrooms, can actually help prevent sort of Alzheimer's and dementia if had in small doses during life. So like micro dosing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard that with
Interesting.
lion's mane, which is just a over-the-counter legal
Yep.
mushroom as well. And I actually take lion's mane, and it is supposed to promote nerve growth.
Yep.
In the brain, and also I guess.
Yeah, there's a few people. I don't know if you know the surfer Owen Wright. He's an Aussie guy. He got a TBI, traumatic brain injury, got smashed on a wave, and pretty much credits his comeback to lion's mane.
Lion's mane, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's funny, have you guys seen like what a lion's mane mushroom looks
Yeah,
like?
they're cool. Hey.
It's like this big, sort of bright white, furry circle. It almost, if you zone out, it almost kind of looks a bit like a brain.
Yeah,
a little
right.
bit.
Yeah.
Like, if you get too close, it doesn't. But
Yeah. Well, there is those the discussion about different foods that look like certain parts of the anatomy are good for those. Walnuts are good for the brain.
Yep. Yeah, they look like a brain, don't they? A walnut, the two halves.
Avocados are good for your nuts.
I think eyes, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, even like they say in the
Eggs are good for the eyes.
the primal health eating thing, like if you want to have a healthy heart, eat heart and things
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
because you've got all the nutrients in there.
I heard that was bullshit. I heard somewhere on some sort of
Where did
podcast,
you
I'm
hear
sure. I think it might have been on a Joe Rogan thing where they were talking about eating the animals that they hunt, and they made that connection. And apparently, some guy was saying that that's not it's a fallacy. It's not true that eating the organ does not of another animal does not benefit that organ for you.
I
I'm
don't
gonna have
know.
to stop eating so many testicles.
Yeah, I thought I'd just keep eating
Lots of plums.
ox's penis. To try
Tiger
to,
penis super something, isn't that?
You
like
won't stop
Chinese,
eating that, mate.
Chinese.
what about
But that
you,
makes
Mick?
sense, though, doesn't it? Sorry, we'll let Mick go.
Yeah, Mick.
Doesn't it make sense to eat if you want a healthy heart? Eat some more heart.
Seems like it would have all the structural components in it, obviously, to build your heart, to maintain it.
Yeah.
It's like if a heart needs a certain amount of this mineral and this vitamin and everything like that, well, you know, if you want to have a healthy heart, it makes sense to me just from a logical point of view that would contain the things you need.
Yeah.
So if you're low on, I don't know, your heart needs selenium or something like that, and you would think another heart would probably have selenium in it.
Well,
for
you
example.
So does
talk
that
about
mean if we eat sheep's brains, we're going to become stupid
become
and walk around and follow people?
possibly.
Follow what we're told.
Aren't they talking about banning, like, what are the drug agencies, WASADA and, you know, those world anti-doping agencies are banning eating testicle because there's too much testosterone in them,
Really?
Mm.
I didn't know that.
bioavailable testosterone.
Yeah, right.
So it
Right.
pumps your levels up. I don't know. I had heard that.
Just eating a big plate of balls for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mick, have you eaten a big plate of, have you heard anything about eating organ meats? That affect-
Yeah, look, I was led to believe that there was certainly some scientific evidence indicating that there was structural and physical benefits, and you know, a consistency in the tissue and things like that that definitely benefited it. I think just jumping back into what you said, Roo, I've just written down a point as you guys were sort of meandering in chat there, and I don't think we would ever see, you know, prohibition of alcohol or any negative substance from a government. I think the shift would have to come from within humanity, because I think if we look at the management of the pandemic from a government perspective, not to drag us down in the doldrums again, but anything that was healthy, we were remitted from doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could still go to a bottle shop.
Exactly. Totally agree.
And so you know, anything that is health adverse will never be removed as an option from society. There will be things like smoking, which gather so much negative rhetoric, you know, through mainstream society, that they will have to place, you know, imagery on packaging and things like that. But we're still, you know, there still hasn't been a global ban on the smoking of tobacco or smoking cigarettes. So the government will never ban that. I know that this isn't being cynical. I know it will come across like that, but I know there's a lot of people who agree with us, and it will never be banned, because the implications of alcohol use, the implications on brain health, on organ health, liver health, kidney health, all of that stuff, and the ongoing treatment of instances of cancers, dementia, you know, through pharmaceutical use, it's such a big earner for these people.
Oh, of course.
And for that reason, there will never, ever be a removal of the use of these substances.
Yeah. Mate, I agree with you. And when I said that, I actually was referring to society's evolution. I wasn't sort of indicating any government, because I totally agree. The governments, they don't want us to be healthy. But I just think the consumer's dollar is going to dictate evolution in a way of products that are provided. So when CJ mentioned earlier, there's more non-alcoholic wine. And I guess the more, and you know, non-alcoholic beer, and I guess the more of these sales increase, we'll see an evolution. And obviously retailers or producers of these things realise that, shit, people want this sort of stuff. Mm. So they're realising an evolution in society in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mick, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
I was going to let Mick touch on anything that he's introduced since we've started the podcast.
Look, guys, the podcast has been massive for me, and I can't thank you guys enough, because, you know, the majority of my long-lasting friendships are back home, and I've been over in Queensland on an adventure over here with the family, and connecting in with you guys, who I consider three of my closest friends. regularly through a difficult period has been massive. Outside of that, some of the major takeaways for me, and I think, I was sitting down and I was journaling a bit about this through the week, and a lot of what we've brought up is stuff like what we're talking about is stuff that we're already sort of doing or we had a knowledge about. But what the podcast has done for me is bring it back into the forefront of my thought processes. And it's made me realise how important my own health is. And the reason I think that's been really important for me is because, going through the journey I have with my wife for the last 6 years, I think what I've realised is I actually neglected my own health. And I really put her at the forefront of all of my decision making and thoughts, and my kids were also, secondary to her, and then way down the list was me. And so what I've realised is that probably through that neglect, I've seen an elevation in my stress levels, and I've gone away from a lot of the day-to-day things that I would encourage you three to do, or I've been encouraging my wife to do for a long time. So I just picked out three really massive ones that I've re-implemented. One is I periodical fast every day till midday, religiously, and feel 1,000 times better for it. I'm much more conscious of my technology use. So I think I had definitely, fallen into a bit of a habit of, picking up a phone and that sort of thing. And now in the mornings, I don't pick up my phone at all. My wife normally gets up and goes to CrossFit first thing in the morning. As soon as she wakes me. I head straight outside. I get into the morning sun straight away in the morning. I think Jonesy was the person who spoke about this in one of our podcasts, but I get that morning sun straight in my face. I sit out there, and the first thing I do is I just meditate for 10 minutes in the morning. And the state at which I'm then starting my day, rather than in stress or, looking at my phone or whatever, is completely different. When I then re-engage back into the house, and normally the kids are starting to wake by that point, I just feel like a different person. And it's just been an amazing way to start my day. And I tick off two things that are really important to me straight away, which is just going and having some contemplation time in the morning and doing a little bit of meditation for myself. And the last one, which I can thank you for, Roo, which was, I guess, a bit of a stimulation for my immune system, is I implemented in the spirulina and chlorella every single day. And I guess the irony is I was looking forward to coming on today and saying, since I did this, I remember Roo saying he got his mum to do it and she hasn't been sick, and, you guys avoid colds and that sort of thing. I actually got a cold last week. But since I implemented that probably 4 or 5 months ago, I've just felt amazing. My immune system's been thriving, and I guess through doing the other things, I do feel a reduction in stress and all that sort of stuff. So they'd be three really big ones for me.
Good on you, mate.
That early morning light's a great one.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was on the back of the research, thinking about what we're going to talk about with sunlight, is when I found that one. So that was probably due to this podcast, doing that research, that I came across that, and so many people talk about it being a positive thing.
Yeah, mate, I'm totally
it
with
wakes
you.
you up really,
it's
really well.
that has changed my life, and particularly changed my morning routine as well. And because I think at the time we started this podcast, my sleep was pretty poor. I'd be waking up in the middle of the night and 2:00 and struggling to go back to sleep, that sort of thing. And the sunlight, vitamin D episode that we did, the sleep episode that we did, I learned a lot from it. So, Mick, I'm pretty similar to you now. I've adopted some changes in the morning. The first thing I do is I get out of bed, I walk out my front door, which faces east, and I look at the morning sun. I look in the direction of the morning sun. And it's a beautiful time of the day. The sky is this beautiful orange, and the birds, there's so many birds around, and they're out, obviously, early bird catches the worm, they're out doing their thing, and it's just a beautiful time of the day. And I guess I do I don't sit down and meditate, but I just sort of I practice a bit of gratitude. I just sort of feel thankful for the day ahead and for that actual moment that I've been given. And I do believe that kicking off my circadian rhythm by looking at the morning sun has definitely helped my sleep. I go back inside. I knock back my apple cider vinegar with some spirulina, magnesium, and some NMN, which is the precursor to the NAD that we spoke about. Which
is that based? You do that now based on what we talked about in that
that's
episode,
right,
or you're
yeah.
already doing that?
No, I did that.
Oh, yeah?
The NMN has been an inclusion in my supplementation since discussing it with Smitty and getting some info from Smitty, which I really appreciated. Then once I've done that, I'll go straight into a cold shower or jump into my cold pool. Obviously, being summer, my pool's a bit warmer, so I've just been having a cold shower for 3 minutes every day, and that starts my day off perfectly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've also just incorporated it, eliminated a few things. So after our toxins episode and researching toxins, I now use homemade soap. I go to a certain supplier and buy homemade soap. I use organic deodorant, got rid of the deodorant I was using, which I thought had no aluminium, but it had some sort of product in it that wasn't good. Using fluoride-free toothpaste and also avocado sunscreen. So I've eliminated all sunscreen. And the beauty of it is my family have adopted these things as well, which I'm really proud about.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah. We've never had seed oils in the house either, so I didn't really have to eliminate those. But definitely the sleep. And at night, I've been now having a little sleep routine, which Smitty, I can again thank you for. The HTP5, which was the precursor to melatonin, has really helped. I have that with some zinc, some glycine and magnesium, and that's a little concoction I have about an hour and a half before bed. And obviously during that time, then I might watch a bit of telly and I turn all the lights out. It's nice and dark. And my sleep has definitely improved just by that morning and that evening practice. So that's one thing, and thanks to you guys for that information that you provided. Because without this podcast, I'll be still sort of struggling with my sleep.
Did we talk about glycine and zinc and magnesium on the podcast?
I think we've touched on them. Yeah.
We have, mate. Yeah, the glycine.
Most definitely. Yeah, glycine we definitely spoke about. Yeah.
In the sleep episode?
Not in the sleep episode.
No, it was probably the detox episode, I think, we spoke about glycine, because glycine's amazing for detox.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, blunt the effects of the vegetable and seed oils, and but it also helps sleep and yeah. But maybe that's a whole podcast.
And it's super cheap.
Glycine.
It's such a good. I love something.
Yeah.
So I love glycine because it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's really cheap.
Yeah.
And it tastes really good, hey? Like,
does.
I think me and you
It's
were joking around about, like, it's a little glass of sugar almost. Like,
yeah.
I think, do you have a quarter of a teaspoon in the night time? Yeah, I'm the same. And I mixed in with probably half a cup of water and I swallow my vitamins with that. And I really look forward to it.
It's quite sweet.
Yeah, I give it to my kids if they go to a party and they've had too many chips or something.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try and blunt that vegetable oil effect and inflammation.
Well, it's all about me. Also, just increased my zone 2 cardio, made it more a prominent feature of my training program. So at least once, try twice a week, and have also just introduced some heat therapy, which I really don't enjoy. So I've been to the sauna now twice, and probably will go this afternoon as well. I struggle with the heat. I find it really uncomfortable, and I get quite agitated and anxious from it. But I just know that that's in my head, and I need to overcome that, because I was the same with the cold therapy. It really took my breath away to have that that feeling. Well, I don't get that anymore, and I know I just need to adapt to this heat therapy. So the other day I did 10 minutes straight up in the I think it was the infrared sauna. I had a break for 3 minutes where I did some cold shower, then went back for 7 minutes into the sauna, got out for another 3 with a cold shower, and did another 5. And that was enough for me. I really do struggle with the heat. But yeah, I'll keep at it. But definitely some things have definitely changed my life since starting this podcast. And thanks to you fellas for introducing it to me.
Yeah, it's all about the 1%ers, isn't it? A lot of the time. It's about making those little small everyday changes, I think, which are the ones that actually really pay big dividends in the end. Like, one of the bits of feedback I've heard a little bit from this show, some people have said, oh, you talk about so much stuff, it's almost overwhelming, like I could never do all of that. And I think the interesting thing is I don't think any of us are doing exactly every single thing that we've spoken about across this show. Like we might be doing the vast majority of it, or maybe some of us doing every single thing. But I think the really important thing is I resonate a lot with what Mick said, is about sort of honouring your own health and making those little incremental changes that you can do to sort of make your life better. So, Mick, when I was listening to you and you were talking about like when your wife was ill and bringing up a family and stuff like that, you always put your own health right at the very bottom. And I can really, minus the sick wife, but just being a dad and having a really busy life, before this podcast, I always sort of thought about myself as being the tough male who needs to suck it up, and I'll put everyone else first, and then whatever I can do for myself, I would sort of think of myself as last, and that was my role, or that's what I thought of my role. And I think the biggest thing that I've taken out of this podcast is sort of still showing up as a dad and a husband and doing all the things I want to do, but also honouring my own health and my own needs a bit more. And for me, one of the biggest things has been sleep, like getting enough sleep, because I would always trade some of my sleep for getting things done around the house, and I'd stay up late at night and maybe try and tidy up a bit, or do some dishes or tidy up some loose ends. And I always thought, oh yeah, sleep, I'm going to suck that one up and I can just catch up on it later. And I think we did that sleep episode, and I really realised that you actually can't really catch up on that. Like once you lose it, if you don't catch up within a day or two, it's kind of just a deficit that's going to have a cumulative, like, negative effect on you. So for me, sleep has been a really big one. But also, yeah, tons of little 1%ers. We were sort of fairly down the rabbit hole of like low tox and natural, and probably for 5 years or so, we've been all our personal care products have sort of been natural and organic, and we've shied away from we drink like unchlorinated, unfluoridated. Is that a word? Unfluorinated.
We'll make it a word.
Yeah, it's a word now.
Fluoridated.
Fluoridated. Yeah, there's 3 versions. So pick your.
Well.
So we've always sort of been of that way, and we've used natural sunscreens and things like that. But the biggest one for me has been exercise. So I've always been a keen sort of mountain bike rider, and we're on a bit of property and I'm always outside. Seems like just endlessly working, and I always sort of thought, oh, well, that's my exercise. I'm sort of moving all day, and I'm sort of doing this low level movement with some lifting and some stuff all the time. But I'm sort of really realising the importance now in my middle age of doing some more sort of formal exercise, where I'm really trying to target some specific things. So thank you to you guys. That Zone 2 episode was really killer since we did that, or leading up to that, doing some research. I've been doing regular Zone 2, which I've really been enjoying. I think it's got some amazing benefits, and I sort of never came across that in my longevity study too much, was the really amazing benefits of sort of that strict Zone 2. It is a bit of a time thing. Obviously, you need to do that minimum sort of 45 minutes to an hour, and you need to do it ideally 3 or 4 times a week. And I've probably been doing it 3 times a week, maybe just for the last, month or so, I guess. But I've sort of read the science behind it, and I really believe in it. And for me to implement something, I really need to believe in it. And then when I make my mind up, then I sort of enjoy doing it. So I think that's another thing that I've really taken away, which has been, will hopefully pay dividends in the future.
I like that it's so easy.
It is easy. Like, it's not, sometimes you think about like a really hard workout or something you're going to do, and it's like, oh God, but you think about Zone 2, it's like, oh, I have a chance to listen to a podcast, or listen to some music, or watch something on telly sometimes. If I'm in a gym that's got a telly, like
the dog,
or whatever, whatever it is, you can be out in nature.
Yeah.
It's like it's something that you look forward to. There's no downside to it.
Yeah.
The only downside to it is you have to make the time.
Yeah.
But that again comes back to that thing that I was talking about, where I always thought the tough male role model was someone who put themselves last and selflessly tried to do things for people. And I think that's a common thing that a lot of men possibly fall into, because you feel like that protector and provider and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's so important that we honour ourselves and our own needs as well, and then integrate that. And I think you actually show up better as a husband and a dad if you do that. So
that's a great call, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the oxygen mask on the aeroplane going down, isn't it? They tell you to put yours on first before you put your kids on.
Yeah,
because then you can function a lot better
Yeah.
when you're breathing oxygen. So
well, for me, sleep's a big one. Like, I do get a bit cranky if I'm sleep deprived.
Yeah, same.
And was probably running on 6 hours for like a long time, and I think I need between 8 and 9 hours. I think, you know how they say everyone's got a slightly different sweet spot. Well, I think for me, my sweet spot's probably 8 or 8 and a bit.
Yep.
So I've really been trying to honour that, and I'm like a bit of an old man now. I'm going to bed at like 8:30 a lot of nights.
Really?
Yeah. I just feel good because I like to. My young daughter is a real early bird, and my wife, to a certain extent, is an early bird as well. And I've always been the opposite. When I was young, I worked a lot of hospitality, and I got really used to going to bed very late and waking up late. So I'm trying to retrain myself, and I've done well. And I'm similar to you. I take some sleep supplements. I take the glycine, and I have used HTP in the past. But now I find if I go to bed at 8:30, I can sort of wake up quite early in the morning naturally, and I really try to aim for a natural wake up rather than being woken up. So I feel like, you know, your sleep cycle is complete and you're ready to wake up. And I just find if I can do that, I feel so much better. So I'm happy to even be awake and just sort of be lying in bed, and then I wait for everyone else to start stirring and hear sounds of movement, and I can get up and just feel fresh.
Yeah, cool.
There's a lot to be said about that natural waking and
so much, yeah.
falling asleep.
Yes.
When the sun goes down.
Yep.
After the sun goes down, and then waking as the sun comes up.
Yeah, and the last part for me I was going to mention quickly was afternoon sunlight. I love it, that late afternoon sunlight when it's golden, you know, that period just before the sun down.
Yep.
Like last night, my wife and my little girl were outside and we were sort of just running around, and we went for a little walk, and it was just so nice. Like the birds are all out doing their last little thing for the day, and the noises and the colour of light. It's just amazing, and I think it's a really good trigger for your circadian rhythm to sort of signal that, you know, we're darkening down here slowly, and that change in light and just that different input into your eye. And yeah, it's a really nice time to be outside, especially when it's been a hot day. It's nice when it's a bit cooler, and it's a really nice time to just go out and connect in nature.
Must be lovely up there in your property as well, where there'd be no traffic, no sirens, no...
Yeah, it's a bit dusty up there at the moment. And it's a long, dry summer.
It has been a dry summer.
It's a dust bowl, mate, to be honest. But it's still nice to be outside, try and get our feet on the earth, and just breathe in some fresh air and stuff. Yeah, some fresh dust.
I wanted to touch on something you said partway through there, was talking about sort of not compliance with all the things we do, but the 80-20 rule. Are you guys aware of this one?
Yes.
So, you know, 80% of the time you're doing the right thing. 20% of the time you might not. So it was interesting that you mentioned, you know, all the things that we do, and, you know, I often get on here and I, you know, talk about it. That's a lot of the feedback that I've received is, there's a lot going on. There's a lot I should be doing that I'm not doing. It is overwhelming.
Yep. And
I often think about that 80-20 rule of, if 80% of the time you're doing the best you can, 20%. You aim for 100%.
Yep.
But you're probably going to get about 80. And we're this. I mean, I know I'm the same.
Yep.
I did just talk about not having a beer, but I'll have a beer every now and then. I'll have some chips that are cooked in vegetable oil. You know, I know the risk that I'm taking. Sometimes I'll avoid it. Like I can do things like I'll get on a plane and I'm not going to eat any of that plane food because I know it's filthy. I'm not going to have any of the soft drinks. I know I can do that. I know I can avoid some things here and there. Other times, you know, you maybe go to the pub, you have a few chips, maybe you have a burger every now and then. You have a bit of gluten, you have a bit of vegetable oil, you know.
It's about balance, isn't it?
That's right,
it's about having a healthy balance and still enjoying your life and still, you know, just having some control and...
Yeah, I mean, you could go full 100% full blown on it and become an absolute recluse and, you know, avoid everything.
You would be a difficult person to interact with.
Yeah, and probably after a while, people aren't going to want to ask you to the pub or for a meal out or something like that, you know. So we still need to enjoy our lives, and you know, we're just talking about little incremental things, and like you're spot on, mate. 80-20 rule, you know, just find the little things that you can do, and most of the stuff that we talk about is free. You know, how hard is it to get out of bed in the morning, go to the front door, look at the sun, have a cold shower, you know, do these little things, eliminate a lot of things.
I remember the one thing that really set. You know, you talk about Pete Evans. We haven't talked about Pete Evans, but I remember him saying, and it was like a 12-second grab, and he just got shut down. And it's almost like he lost his career over talking about early morning sunlight and looking into the sun.
Yeah,
I remember
and you
that.
know, like he was on Sunrise
Yeah.
and those kind of shows.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the irony.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this.
Sunrise.
Yeah, yeah. This guy gets it.
Yeah, he got
He got
hard.
lambasted
Yeah.
for
Pete
saying,
Evans
"Look,"
recommends you looking into the sun and burning your retinas out and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
directly looking into the
Yeah.
sun. And the interview he did about sunlight, they took that little grab and said, "Look at this crackpot."
Yeah.
He tells you looking directly into the sun, and then they had guests come on and experts in the field saying, "No, you don't look directly in the sun. Look at this guy's crazy."
Yeah.
But his message for that 30-minute interview that he did in between those bits,
Was the benefits of
was
The danger of the grab. They
Yeah,
can get you every
that's
time.
right,
They
yeah.
can make you sound
Yeah.
crazy or like a
well,
genius.
they do it to a
depending
lot
on
of
which
people,
grab.
don't they?
Of course,
They do
yeah.
it to Jordan Peterson a lot.
Absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
all these
mainstream
guys that
media
anyone.
are just a joke.
Yeah.
I don't even give them the my listenership
No.
or my time. I find them just disgusting.
Yeah.
They're just talking heads behind a counter, just rabbiting off a screen of what's been delivered from their corporate ownership. You know, they just fuck me off. I hate them.
Well, I mean, you talked a little bit before about non-alcoholic beers and the market going that way because that's what the market demands, and that's the same with these kind of things. If people didn't demand and listen to these people and give them their money, things would be different, right? But it's still the same thing.
Is it slowly turning?
I think so.
You know, like
Yeah.
more. You know, you look at the US and all the US news channels have less listenership than Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
You know, like people are, and Joe Rogan often says this. People are after more meaningful discussions. So you know, a lot of his podcasts go for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm quite happy to listen to them. But people want to be engaged in a more deeper level of discussion than just snip bits like, you know, 5 people on a screen talking about one point and arguing against a narrative. You know,
Yeah.
it's just.
I
think their time is nearly done.
Yeah, it's also funny that everywhere you go in a waiting room in the doctors, any reception, you know, a mess room, wherever it might be, you've got the morning talk shows up on the screen. It's like it's background noise that we have to have there. I was like, why do we always have that on?
Yeah.
I really think
Shut
it's a
that
dying
down
industry, isn't it? It's on its deathbed, really.
Well, I hope so.
I think there's too many options now, like technology, and we've spoken about the downside of technology, but it's also giving us access to like alternative media and alternative sources of entertainment. So we're not just, if you think back in the 80s, it was just
That
TV.
was it. Yeah.
It was
The
TV
Anchorman
or it was
the main
nothing,
man, yeah.
you know, and they were kind of gods, you know, and perhaps media outlets were a little bit more honest in the way they reported the news back then, maybe, I don't know, but I think the feeling amongst a lot of people now is that you're not really getting a very twisted
one-sided
idea,
picture,
biased, exactly right, idea of what's going on.
One's
And
a
so I think-
right-wing media,
exactly
one's a left-wing
right.
media. And
Particularly
if
if
you
you
watch
look at
that one,
American
then
stuff.
you're that side, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
that's very American, but
I
you
do
know.
feel like that is like a legacy thing. You're talking about TVs being on, and
Yeah.
you know, we all work at an employer, and there is a TV, and it's generally in the morning. You would see just some, I don't know what they're called, sunrise or whatever on. I don't really know anyone that watches it anymore. I think people are looking for different alternative sources to get their information.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The beauty of media, I guess, is that when they're bullshitting to us, they're on record forever. And that's really come to light in this last week when it's now been admitted that the COVID-19 origin was from a lab in Wuhan, China. That has now the FBI, after all its investigations and all the other investigative agencies, have announced that, yep, it came from a lab in China.
has that been announced? Has
Yep.
it? Can we fact check you on that?
Yeah, well, there's an interview for the FBI, the head of the FBI, who he's announcing this on mainstream television.
Really?
And I guess being mainstream television, there could be an agenda behind that. Who knows?
Because I don't listen to mainstream television, I missed that one. But
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I heard it on some sort of podcast, and then I watched
Wow.
Sky News, and Sky News was showing it, and also Fox News was showing it. But I guess, you know, there's two
Right-wing media, right?
right-wing medias there. But it also is appearing in other literature as well, so in newspapers and that were against that whole thing. And what I'm getting to here is back when that theory was announced that it could have come from a lab in Wuhan. Everyone who said it was denounced as a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hatter, and they actually termed racist for saying that it come from China. Now you've got all these so-called journalists 2 years ago, but all their footage is coming up saying what they were saying at the time and how they were, denouncing Trump because he said it come from China and they call him a racist and all this sort of thing. It's just, and then
he kept calling it the China virus.
Yeah, will it come from China?
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing there, though, is, and the thing to just consider around the messaging and how that does come out is, without diving into this too much, is we also know that a lot of American funding went into that lab
that's right,
potentially released that virus.
Exactly.
So then terming it the Chinese virus is, just because that's its point of origin, you could enter into a debate that's inaccurate.
That's right.
Are we gonna call it an American funded Chinese virus?
Exactly. Spot on.
How far do we go with this? So I think the important thing to remember in this for everyone in terms of of that whole rigmarole is to be discerning in the information that you choose to take in. And I think that's what we're saying around media. I was just sitting here listening then, guys, and one of the things that I can't believe we missed is we talked about removing toxins and things like that. Probably the first thing we should have said is removing fucking mainstream media. It's the most toxic thing we consume.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, mate,
and we've all done that.
Unfortunately, when they come out with some sort of incorrect message, that first message seems to sink in, I'd say at least 60-40, right? So say it sinks in to most people, 60% would absorb that news. Now, if that news, which is incorrect, is then corrected, I'd say probably 40%, maybe at least, of people see that correction. So then there's always this majority have seen the original post. And I'll give you an example. So the ABC here in Australia went to report on the Alice Springs thing that's gone up there. So Alice Springs local government have removed the alcohol ban, particularly with the Indigenous communities struggling with alcoholism. Since they've done that, there's been a lot of unruly behaviour with Indigenous youth in the town and a lot of damage happening and stuff like that. So the town got together to try to sort it out. They had a community meeting. There was Indigenous people. There were non-Indigenous people in the meeting. An ABC reporter went up there to report on that meeting. She actually arrived late, so the doors were closed. But she, in her presentation, announced that she was denied entry into the meeting, and then she made the claim that the meeting was majority white supremacists at this meeting. So that hit the ABC News at 6 p.m. Now, the majority of people will see that, but then it wasn't until an alternative individual news source, I think it might have been Rebel News, dug up a little bit more information on that journalist, and she wasn't even in the meeting. So here she is commenting on a meeting, calling people at the meeting who are concerned about their township and what's going on there white supremacists, and it wasn't even the case. And so how many people then get to see that correction? That's what I find disturbing. Do you understand what I mean? So
yeah, I do.
Majority of people see the 6 p.m. news on ABC, think the ABC is a legitimate organisation, which I question myself. It used to be.
Yeah, I used to think ABC was very credible.
Yeah, you'd go there to get your proper news.
A few years ago, yeah.
It's been infiltrated.
I think that they're in the same boat as everyone else. They're trying to capture a dwindling market, and doing sensationalist stuff like that gets people to click on it. And you're right. You probably don't see the correction, but they don't give a shit. All they're trying to do is get you in.
Yeah.
They're not.
So what you're saying, mate, is that a sign of their desperation, of their lowering listening audience or watching audience? Are they desperate?
Well, I think they're probably trying to capture, people that are elsewhere, getting their media news from elsewhere. I mean, we've probably all just sort of said, oh, well, that was a credible place to go, the ABC, and now we're kind of
Well, have
I
you
don't
heard in recent news there's been a lot of countries bringing out truth departments or like
Fact checker.
fact checkers or anti-misinformation, disinformation organisations. So a lot of taxpayers' money are going into these agencies to monitor truth. And I don't know how you do that because what's one person's
truth?
Yeah, whose truth? Whose truth are we abiding by? But my point is what they're actually, these agencies are now targeting are podcasts. So podcasts are now on the agenda as being too much of a source of misinformation and disinformation.
Of information where people get information from. So that's what they're saying is, well, we got to shut that down because now they're not listening to us in the mainstream media. They're going elsewhere, like we were just talking about, to get more information, proper information maybe.
This takes me back to a year ago at the beginning of this podcast, how it came about. And really, if you think back 1 year ago, we were deep into mandates, masking, mandatory vaccination, all this sort of stuff. And I remember Roo having a conversation with you about the importance of, or how good would it be if people were embracing natural health in order to increase their wellness. We were looking at this society of people walking around and you couldn't see anyone's face. They were all masked. Everyone was terrified. The world really was shut down. You couldn't travel. People were forced out of work for vaccine mandates. And it takes me back to our motivation for this podcast was really to share to those people that agree with our point of view in natural health and the benefit of incorporating this stuff into your daily life. And that was our sort of mission, wasn't it, to spread this out to people as a service of, essentially what we believe.
It was.
It's sort of been a great help to all of us, but that was our motivation. Like, this is our little source of interest because it's an area that all interests us, but we're our own little media outlet in a way, sort of putting out our truth about ancestral health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of people are doing that and a lot of podcasts and things like that. And maybe governments don't like it. I mean, we were joking in the depths of COVID about, they were talking about obviously masking and staying indoors and not socialising and that. And we were talking about how good would it be if people got out in the sun and breathed some fresh air and got some vitamin D and,
ate well,
exercised.
At not one point during that whole fiasco was nutrition discussed.
I mean, they weren't letting people go to the beach for a surf. I mean, what was going to happen? Was a bloody dolphin going to pop out of the waves and cough COVID into your lungs?
I remember the water police out there.
in salt water, for God's sake.
On their speakers. Surfers, surfing is an outdoor activity.
Yeah.
Go back home. Like, we're out there, sitting in the ocean far away from other people.
But here's my take on it. I believe there are a lot more people out there in society who are starting to believe in natural health.
Yeah.
And this model, this conventional model, which seems to be getting further and further away from nature and from common sense, of just this pharmaceutical, fear-based approach. So I think there is a groundswell of interest in this area.
Yeah.
And I hope people can incorporate some of it into their life. Like, you listen to our podcast, and we're not saying it's not a pass or fail. Like, incorporate every single thing we talk about. Otherwise, you're not going to do well. Just incorporate one thing.
Yeah.
Something that, if there's one podcast that interests you and you think, oh, maybe I could get a bit more sleep, or maybe I should eat a little differently, or whatever, it's going to be life-changing. And you might find that down the track, after you've done that for 3 or 6 months or 3 weeks or 3 days, you might think, oh, I could do something else. And it's all about making small, positive, incremental changes and moving away from this other system, isn't it?
And if you know of a family member or a friend that's struggling, maybe just send them a podcast or something. Send them an episode, and just spread the word.
Yeah, or just lead by example.
Yeah.
Let people see how well and healthy and energetic you look and feel. And don't you find when you're around someone, they just emanate positivity and wellness when things are going well in their life and they're sort of well?
Yep.
You see some people who aren't doing so well, and they look visibly ill.
Yeah.
If you look well, people might think, oh, I wonder what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think, guys, that just to add a bit to that, Matty, as well, there's nothing more self-empowering than taking control of your own health.
Yeah.
I guess what we've said is, and we don't profess to be experts. We're only, we constantly, say on this podcast, just to be clear, we're just talking about what has worked for us. But what we have all done individually is, prior to going and seeking advice from external bodies or professionals, we've taken ownership of different health issues that have arisen or different scenarios that have arisen within our lives, and we've explored them ourselves. And if we've then needed to go and fatten up our I guess, or broaden our spectrum of awareness or information or knowledge, we've done that. And if that involved going and speaking to a professional in a relevant area, we've also done that. However, the initial thing, and this was something that I think was born out of what we started this for as well, is don't just watch the TV and be dictated to in relation to how you maintain your health. Have some thought in it for yourself. It is natural for you to get outside. It's natural for you to get in the sun. It's natural for you to move. It's natural for you to consider, how am I eating? You know, these are all things, like Roo said earlier, they're free. You can be in control. And if you implement the 80%, you'll probably live a very healthy life. And so I think it's overwhelming for people when they start out, because the contemplation of the fact that they've actually been deferring to other people for a long time in relation to their own health. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but that can be quite confronting for some people to go, well, hold on, no one knows me as well as I know me. Does that make sense?
Definitely, mate. I think you might have taken Smitty's end of episode Yoda spiel or words of wisdom there, because that'd be a great way to finish.
Yeah, I love
That's
it.
what we're all about. Spot on.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
What do you reckon? Should we get our air guitars ready or what?
I think so.
I reckon. Let's get them ready.
Let's do it.
Good to chat with you guys.
Good on you guys. It's a good little chat.
Thanks,
that one.
legends.
All right. See you, boys. Until next week.
Yeah. Get in
I'm
touch
ready.
with us
Thanks,
if you
guys.
want. Yeah. Modern Ancestral Man at Gmail. Get on the Instagram, Modern Ancestral Man. Flick us a message. Getting a few messages these days. It's good. Good to interact. Thank you to the listeners.
Air guitar.